Hey everyone, my name is Taps, and today I want to actually cover the interview that we just saw with Dan, the COO of Ecomi and Veve, on the Digital Entertainment Week online webinar series, where the host was fantastic. He interviewed Dan, and we actually got a number of timeline updates as well as expectations on where we can get some more information around the Master Collectors Program and many, many more things. So this just happened a few days ago, and I wanted to highlight the significant pieces from that interview. As always, if you're new, welcome to the community and feel free to subscribe. I'm a crypto stock and real estate investor, but never a financial advisor. So the first piece that really stuck out to me was actually the fact that the host brought up, hey, we don't see the word NFT anywhere on Veve or Ecomi's websites, right? Like they speak about how they're NFTs on social, but on the websites, they don't reflect that. He kind of, asked that question, which I think a lot of the larger influencers and investors in the NFT space are saying the same thing. And I'm happy he asked it because they addressed the question.
On your website, it doesn't actually say the word NFT anywhere. I assume that was deliberate.
Thing is, we started so long ago that, back then it was a digital collectible. I mean, no one even knew what an NFT was back then. I mean, it was only since January this year that the word NFT has almost become ubiquitous.
So he reminds us again that back in 2018 when they started, NFTs were really not as hot as they are today, right? Which I remember back then because I started investing in crypto back in 2018, and NFTs were a pipe dream back then, right? Like Decentraland had just kicked off, Engine had been doing their thing, but back then no one was really, hyping up NFTs. Back then, if they really wanted to sign these major licensors, digital collectibles had to be the way that they pitched them, and then just have crypto in the background, because back then, no one really cared about non-fungible tokens and didn't understand them.
Currently doing drops of Marvel comic books, which is so cool. It's a natural fit for any collectors. Do you see this as the future of how comic books will be sold?
I mean, I think there's always going to be a space for the physical side of comics. But I think the advantage of NFT-based comics is that you kind of get the best of both worlds. As in, you have this comic that you can own and you can read, but you also have, because you have complete ownership over it, you can sell it, you can trade it, you can do whatever. And obviously, we're very excited to have Marvel's very first comic, Marvel Comics #1, as our very first debut. So, anyone in the collecting world knows that anything that's a first appearance in any particular type of medium can often garner great value down the lines.
So what I like about this piece is, I feel like a lot of projects are just gung-ho, like, yeah, we're going to change the world, we're going to do this. And the host actually asks him, Veve's coming out with these digital comic books. Do you think that the way the space is going is going to be just this? And he says, no. Like, there's always going to be a place for actual comic books, but this is definitely a way that the space is going, and it's basically going to become an added medium to the collecting world. And he even goes on to give us a little bit of a hint, like, you should really make sure that you should have that first Marvel comic book drop. So if you haven't snagged it up yet, I would probably recommend it. Right now, the value on the comics are pretty low because there's so many of them, right? But I feel like that'll change as we're able to store them in our vaults and do more with them.
So you already have hundreds of thousands of collectors, which is pretty rare in this particular space. A lot of major platforms are doing it with a much smaller community. What do you know about this group and why they're purchasing these digital collectibles?
Surprisingly, it's the age range. Like some of the demographics. I mean, number one, we're really a worldwide product. Even to the smallest parts of Europe, to countries in Africa, obviously North America. But the interesting thing for me was the age range of the audience. I expected it to be really a little bit younger, maybe from say 18 up to 29. But as the product started to evolve, we have a massive range of users from sort of 18 up to 50.
So I love that Dan actually touched on what the age range is, because when you think of a platform going after a certain user base, it's usually a set segment within 10 to 15 years of age. For instance, like the doll market, they're going after 2-year-olds to 10-year-olds or 12-year-olds. or certain, gaming systems. They're going after like the 10-year-olds all the way up to the 32-year-olds. But Veve's target audience is listed at 18 to roughly around 50 years old. That's a big range, and I would argue it's actually bigger than that because you have to be 18 to sign up on the app and create all that, right? But I've seen plenty of people who have their families with multiple devices, like their kids participating on drops, and they're taking photos with them and they're playing with them and casting them in augmented reality. So I would bet that it's somewhere even around like 12 years old to 50 years old who are actively using the app. So their target audience is big. And again, what's their goal is to target mass adoption. Well, the age range is massive and they're not all crypto users, right? So they're doing this in a great way and they're targeting, again, a big demographic.
And speaking of three-dimensional space, your website teases that the Veveverse is coming. Metaverses have been very hot as a point of discussion now, especially with Mark Zuckerberg coming out and saying Facebook's going to become a metaverse company.
Side note, when I heard that, I bought more Facebook stock.
So why did you decide to go in this direction? And do you have any details you can share about the Veveverse?
Well, I mean, it's always been one of our sort of guiding principles from early on starting the company is that we believe we're about to enter a truly digital age. Eventually, this phone is going to be some sort of wearables that's plugged over my eyes, and I'm going to see digital items and digital assets everywhere, even almost beyond the metaverses. And I walk into my home, I've got a couple of pieces of real furniture in there, but my TV on the wall is completely virtual because I'm wearing AR, some sort of AR glasses or whatever. And then in my room, obviously I've got all my digital collectibles and everything as well. Having a metaverse allows the NFTs to be displayed. You can show them off in the same way that you would with physical items. You can have that interactivity, that creativity. So, this digital step that we're about to take, I mean, everyone from Facebook, Unity, Unreal, so many people are looking into the metaverse now. I really believe that is going to become almost the next kind of internet, if you will, is that there will be these huge metaverses out there that people will participate in. And we think we have a great opportunity because, we're bringing licensed content into those worlds.
Comic-Con 24/7, right? Officially licensed collectibles, deep fandom behind the things they do. Is it going to be built out as a social experience as well? We'll walk around as avatars trading NFTs back and forth? Is that the plan?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it primarily is a social platform. So you'll be able to have your own piece of land in there. And then on that land, you can obviously build out your own, crazy showroom or home. Really have these different worlds in which, licensors or particular brands can really be celebrated, and we can run sort of competitions. We'll also have, Veve City, which is going to be the big sort of centralized area. And in that is obviously going to be, the marketplace. There's going to be the store. We'll run all our competitions. We'll do our live drops, fully avatar based. So yeah, social is a huge part of collecting, and obviously a huge part of online worlds. So yes, that will be a big part of what we're doing.
So Dan said a bunch of things there, right? First of all, they are banking very heavy on wearables, and justifiably so, because that is where the space is going. That is where the rest of the world, the rest of technology companies, including Facebook with metaverses, are looking to, right? The wearable technology with augmented reality and mixed reality is getting cheaper. It's getting less bulky. And hopefully they figure out how to make it so that you don't get the motion sickness. But eventually it will be as simple as grabbing your glasses, putting them on, and like he said, that's going to be how you see your TV. So you won't actually own a TVD. You'll have a TV that you bought via an NFT that you put on your glasses. It's loaded in your AR wearable, and then you just see it. The future is going to be wild, and they're preparing for it now. And the other piece that he says is you have to be thinking about the metaverse, right? Like there's a bunch of NFTs that are crushing right now. And what do? They sit in your wallet. They sit on OpenSea, and you look at them and you make them your profile picture. And I'm not talking any crap about, any projects, but they're all having to now say that they are doing airdrops. They're going to do metaverses because they have to have utility in order to scale. Otherwise, what could be worth $20,000 today may not be worth much in another couple months to a year to 2 years. So they have to create metaverses, and a lot of them are just going to throw something together and it's not going to really be sticky enough to last because you want some kind of gamification within that metaverse. And if it's just a bunch of pixels or a bunch of pictures overlaying, it's not going to do it compared to these actual 3D rendered worlds that are going to be legitimate. And that's what Veve is bringing with the Veveverse. This is going to be basically the new internet. The metaverse world is taking over. And this is a bigger opportunity for Veve than anyone else, because when they create those metaverses, they're able to put, you know, whatever they dropped for their NFT and maybe make a few partnerships with a few other projects. But Veve has licensors, partnerships, and brands that most don't. So they're going to be able to have a Marvel world. They're going to be able to have a DC world. They're going to be able to have a legitimate artist alley with premium artists. They're going to be able to have an anime world that all are jumpable worlds from Veve City and your own showroom, right? So you're going to be able to buy land. Would you rather have a metaverse that was slapped together that just works with a few NFTs that came out, you know, a year ago, 2 years ago? Or would you rather have NFTs that allow you to be an avatar, that are social with your friends, getting together, doing drops and competing in mini games where you can actually go to Marvel Land? I would choose that project any day.
Sounds like yours is something that's going to kind of edge towards gaming. Is there a chance to, say, play with these NFTs in the future?
Maybe I use my DeLorean to drive from one side of the Veveverse to the other. Or perhaps I could race my DeLorean against the Ecto One. Yeah, there's a lot of things that we can do to sort of gamify. It will ultimately start off as a social platform, as a meeting point.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like Ready Player One already with the idea of the Ecto One and the DeLorean racing against each other. It's very, very cool.
So I wanted to highlight this piece because, again, there will be gamification, right? Like the ability to race your Ecto One and your DeLorean and Fast and Furious cars, whatever comes, while also being able to drive it. So being able to actually race them, or have your Batman or Superman or Marvel, whoever, avatar, then get into it. I mean, you'll be able to race them almost like remote control cars, or I think like almost like Forza a little bit, or even be able to get in the vehicle and then go to another world, almost like a Grand Theft Auto. I mean, that itself is really, really cool and much better quality than a lot of the other NFTs that we see out there.
Do you have any future IP that you're going to be working with that you'd like to tease a little bit?
Oh, I'm never one to tease future licensing.
Not Dan.
Licensors. Like everyone else, you'll just have to wait and see. But I will say that that September is going to be very exciting. We've got a lot of cool new brands coming on into the drop schedule.
September is going to be an exciting month.
Tell me, how much do you expect from immutable migration, and do you think interoperability will transfer into utility?
Yes, I do. I mean, I think one of the big advantages of moving to immutable is that, number one, we're moving into a far more ubiquitous platform, that can be used right across a number of different digital collectible marketplaces or NFT marketplaces. It also opens us up to the ETH community. It makes us, far easier to list on various different exchanges. Yeah, and in terms of the utility side of things, that is something that we do have coming in the future.
So what Dan said there was immutable opens up to multiple marketplaces, right? So we have a big focus on OpenSea, but that's because OpenSea is the gold standard. But there's also tons of other NFT marketplaces that use and track NFTs. And so it'll actually be able to cast out a broader net on what is available because of that interoperability. It's easier for many more exchanges because they're tied to ETH. So, we've only seen 5 exchanges, but we'll have a lot more exchanges available to us being on a layer 2 ETH solution with Immutable. And the other piece is, again, it's on Ethereum. I buy other NFTs as well, and I've told some people about NFTs, and when they go to look at, a project that's on Polygon or something else, they just won't even give it the time of day because they don't want to actually bridge to make that wrapped ETH. And so they're like, tell me about the next one that's on Ethereum. So we're already seeing where some people just give up. So because they're going to be on an Ethereum solution, Immutable X, it's going to make it much easier for people to mint, buy, sell, trade NFTs via Immutable X. And again, they have the ERC 1155, so you'll be able to batch send and actually sell things as a full set.
Can we get a roadmap of Master Collector program?
Master Collector program is in the works at the moment. And as I've said on a number of AMAs, we will be releasing some information about that over September.
So this was the first interview where I caught, at least, that he said we're going to be getting information, actual real information about the Master Collector program, which we've been asking when for a long time. So September, we finally get some details, and I don't know if that means they'll give us details around, you know, collectibles or tiers or levels or whatever, or staking, but we will be getting some information, some visibility into the Master Collector program in September.
Have you felt any change in sentiment towards NFTs from licensors since the Marvel announcement?
Well, I will say that our phones definitely rang a lot harder
I would hope
after
so.
I mean, a lot of the licensors who we were talking to were all of a sudden wanted to get back on the phone. I mean, even with Marvel, you know, I mean, we've been working with Marvel for probably, I don't know, 18 months, you know, to sort of reach this point.
18 months. They've seen us sweating bullets like time and time again, like, oh, I think they have Marvel because of this, and we're connecting all these dots and eating all these breadcrumbs, and they've had Marvel for 18 months. And again, he touches on, well, our phone has been ringing off the hook essentially since we announced Marvel. So any of those massive brands that were hesitant when they were kind of pitching NFTs before they took off and really had the massive user base and had everything selling out, they're calling them back, right? So when you think of the biggest licensors in the world that might have said, not sure on you, Veve, they're calling them now because they've seen how much money is hemorrhaging from Marvel. And it's a win-win. It's a way for them to get their brand and their license out there to a whole nother audience for a lot, as well as a way to make a killing. So think about your favorite brand. Think of your favorite license. What is it? Like, type it in the comments, because I think we could really uncover a whole lot of licensors that we haven't even considered yet. And we already know that we have barely seen under the surface of what's even been revealed to us on the licensors yet.
Would you be open to games within the Veveverse having the ability to burn OMI?
Absolutely. You know, adding gamification into the Veveverse is definitely high on the list. Will there be ways that you can burn OMI? Absolutely. And you know, that's one of some of the news that we'll be releasing with the Master Collector program. A whole bunch of options for burning in the interim.
Dan confirmed. He said a whole bunch of options for ways to burn OMI, and that's coming with the Master Collector program, which we know again is coming in September.
Will Apple or Google take over Veve, and if so, will you allow this?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I've got a few picks as to who might potentially one day take over Veve, which I won't voice now. But yeah, Google, Apple. I mean, I actually don't know, to be honest.
I mean, you got to assume that Disney is, right? Because Disney likes to hold IP and distribution so much.
So this question was really interesting, and it was really interesting how Dan answered it, because again, you know, what would happen if a company wants to acquire them? And this is actually something I need to dive into a little bit, because I don't know what happens if a public company like Disney or Facebook or Apple were to acquire a company that's backed by blockchain and crypto. I actually don't know what would happen to the OMI token. I imagine it would stay whole, but or be bought out. I really don't understand what that would look like. And Dan mentioned Google and Apple, and the host mentioned Disney. So again, when they're thinking like how high this will scale, they're only considering the biggest contenders, which really should give you a little bit of happiness as an investor this early to know that those are the targets. And when you actually think about Dan and David, they are very, very well off. I mean, David himself has like 7 companies. He's won awards from Deloitte. They're not hurting to sell the company or hurting for money. This is a passion project, and it's taken off a lot faster than expected. So they're not looking to sell out immediately. I'll have to look into this more, but it isn't something to worry about today, this year, or anytime soon, in my opinion.
TapsTrades says, we know anime is coming to Veve eventually since we saw comic book NFTs. What's the likelihood of seeing digital manga NFTs?
Watch his body language.
Number one, hey Taps, love your community contributions. Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. I think the only caveat I'd like to say is that, yeah, working with some of the anime IP, can be a lot more, a much more of an intensive process. That IP is very protected, and they have, very specific channels that they like to go through. We are absolutely, of course, trying to continue to work down that anime path. I mean, I'm a massive anime fan myself. So yeah, really all I can say is watch the space.
So a couple things there. Thanks for the shout out, Dan. And I was happy to be on this, and I had to get this question answered because I'm a huge anime fan and Dan's a huge anime fan, which is great to hear. But watch his body language. When, he said, yeah, and then he kind of like backpedaled a little bit and said, well, licensing with anime is a little bit difficult, like the licensor is a process. But if you notice his body language, like he kind of like scratches right here, he looks away a bunch, like he's very much trying to have a poker face, but I caught him, I think. I'm pretty sure I caught him, which I touched on a video not long ago where manga actually sells out more than comics and graphic novels. And there are some very, very big influential people who are into manga.
When is the gems to dollar conversion?
The majority of the development on our side is done. And now we are just going through the final testing and regulation compliance. This is not a confirmation, but I'm hoping that in mid to late September, we should see that in place.
So again, not a confirmation because they don't want to be held to timelines because we've seen things can shuffle, but mid to late September for MTL. And one last thing I wanted to throw in was we've all kind of been, a little bit hesitant about, what can we mint on OpenSea? Well, probably things from artists and the smaller licensors, but probably not Marvel, right? Well, we saw this tweet from Crypto John where he said, when Jermaine Rogers deals with Veve, he chooses to make NFTs interoperable because he understands the NFT wave and ownership. DC and Marvel will not make them interoperable as long as they don't get larger cut from the sales on all platforms. Big brands don't understand NFTs. Ecomi could have just ignored it, but Ecomi made a point to respond to Crypto John and say, don't underestimate the big brands, friend. They see an opportunity here the same as everyone else. Besides, Immutable's contracts can support a wide range of transaction types. Again, they made a point to respond. And what did Crypto John mention specifically? DC and Marvel. So, do you think that we're only going to want Myrmicornos as avatars? No, we're going to want Batman, which they've referenced Batman being able to be an avatar before, and Marvel. So the fact that they responded has me very bullish that Marvel and DC will be available on Immutable Interoperability and hopefully in an OpenSea or whatever marketplace. So this was a really interesting interview because they touched a lot on the metaverse space, what we got a little bit more clarity around Veve and Veve City and these large Marvel worlds that are going to be built in it, how we're going to be able to race our vehicles, which we've heard about already, but I guess what kind of level of detail goes into this and scoreboards and competitions against each other. And really that gaming metaverses are going to need to start really thinking about IP and licensing in order to keep scaling as the technology in the metaverse world continues, which means more exchanges are coming. We know that the Master Collector program is going to finally have some info coming in September. We know that MTL is coming in September. We know a bunch of big licensors are coming in September, which I'm betting on NFLPA among some others. So with that, September seems like a very, very bullish month, and we've been waiting for that massive month since March and April, which were the last big months, to really see the OMI token fly. And I believe that all of these things adding up, all of it on the table is going to be what we need. As always, I hope you found my content valuable, and if so, please hit the like button and leave a comment down below. The comments and likes appease the algo overlords and help my channel to continue to grow. And if you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button and notification bell for future content. That's it for today. I'm Taps. Thank you for your time, man. Happy trading.